Good morning, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live. My name's Tim Bankhurst, and I'm joined today by Michael Holzer. Michael, you're a soccer coach. You've been a soccer coach across many, many different levels. So rather than me try to explain to everybody, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you came from and what you're doing now.
Yeah, hey, my name is Michael Holzer. I'm born and raised in Germany. I've played soccer all my life. I started when I was 4, played for different academies in Germany till I was 21. After I was 21, I decided to take the opportunity to get a soccer scholarship in the US, played D1 soccer for UNC Greensboro and Iona College. After that, I decided to do my master's in communication and on the same time to play for the New York Cosmos professionally. And then after like a year or so, I decided to go full time into coaching. I directed 3 academies in New York: Lansdowne Yonkers FC, Espanyol Barcelona, and Fox Soccer Academy. I was the assistant coach at Iona College and also the head coach for a United Premier Soccer League team, FSA Pro.
Wow, those are a lot of titles. The interesting thing that you talked about is playing professional for the Cosmos for 1 year and then moving into coaching. What helped make that decision for you? Because that's a difficult decision, right? From going from I'm a professional athlete to I'm not going to be a professional athlete anymore. I'm going to move into coaching.
Yeah, so at that time I was already 25, and it is really difficult to really succeed when you're 25 and you're not really in the MLS yet. And then I just made the decision. Let me start early with my coaching career. You can never start early. I've always seen young coaches with Guardiola, Mourinho, Nagelsmann, and that really inspired me to be a coach. And I think it was the right decision. I'm 29 now, but I think that I have much more to learn. I'm happy I started so early.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about what you have learned, I mean, just before we started this discussion, you were talking about some of your experiences traveling and observing other coaches. In your opinion, what makes a great soccer coach?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, because when I was at Leicester City, I was with the professional team in December 2019. I was learning from Brandon Rodgers for a week. I was with Leicester City, and I asked the same question the first time I met him. I asked him, "What do you think is the most important aspect of a coach?" And he said, "Man management." Okay, so he really puts the persons first before the athletic game. And I think a good communication, a good relationship with each single athlete is very important, because you can't always have the best relationship. But if there's a relationship between you as a coach and a player, that is very important to get the respect of the players.
How do you get the respect of the players? Is there something maybe in your pedigree, in your experiences of, well, Michael's been a professional player. He played college, therefore he's somebody we should listen to? Or is it more just the time that you spend with the players where they get to learn who you are?
Yeah, I think it's more the time. I think I really try to give every single player some time and personally to get to know them, because at the end of the day, they are human beings and they want to be interacted with. And if you get to know them, you know how they tick, and you talk with them, you communicate with them constantly, you give them feedback constantly, positive and negative. It is much better for the overall relationship if you don't do that. So I think the communication aspect and is a very important aspect for me as a coach. I know not every coach is the same, but for me, it's one of the vital philosophies in my coaching career.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with Michael Holzer. He's a soccer coach across many different levels. If you have a question for him, just put it in your chat box and we'll get it to him. I just mentioned that you've coached across many different levels. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges of coaching a college team, college athletes versus juniors.
Yeah, I mean, if you coach in college, you really need to know your stuff, okay? Because you're working with adults. Most of those players, especially international players, have played for high academies, highly leveled academies across Europe or South America, and those coaches are really good. So you really need to earn your respect by quality information, and good training sessions, and a good plan to approach to win the game. and that's really important. If you coach in the youth level, it's more important about the development and that you really develop the technical skills and so on. But since the college game is so competitive and coaches really need to show results every year, they're under a lot of pressure. So it's a very difficult position for a coach sometimes.
But I look at soccer is huge in the United States. It's huge worldwide, as we know. I hear a lot of coaches under a lot of pressure, even at the junior levels, in the academies, in the club teams, where winning is definitely a high pressure situation. So how do you as a coach balance the development of the players you talked about against your teams are expected to win? The parents expect your teams to win. How do you juggle that? Because that can be difficult.
Yeah, I kind of combine it in terms of, I think that if you really train the right way, which means every warm-up should include the ball, and it kind of gets automatic, then that will help you to win games. You have to be enthusiastic and passionate on what you're doing. And if you train the right way, we've always included the ball, great exercises, I think that can really help you over a long term to achieve your results. And I think that kind of takes away the pressure. But obviously, development is more important. Development and making each player better every single day as a soccer player. That should be the main aspect of coaching in the youth level, because winning is secondary and should come more in the adult level, college level, and professional level, not in youth development.
How do you get that across to the parents who, expect Johnny or Sally to always be playing all the time, to be the one who scores? Or how do you communicate that with parents of, look, I'm doing what's best for your child in the long term, when there's pressure of, we want Johnny to look good on our video, so to speak?
I think that's a really difficult one, because I think not many coaches take initiative and have like a little meeting in front of before the season to really explain what it takes and what to expect throughout the year. I think those kind of meetings is another aspect of communication again, but it's very important to inform and educate the parents what it is about to be a better soccer player, what is expected in terms of playing time and so on. Because if you have that meeting and everyone is clear, then there is going to be at least 60% less issues than if you wouldn't have the meeting.
Yeah, it's a great point. Having a parent meeting at the beginning can really set the standard and the tone so that they know what to expect.
And on top of that, if I could just add, in the US is a pay-to-play game in the youth level. So obviously all the parents, they expect their kids to play because they're paying money for it. In Europe, usually not the case. The parents don't pay to play. So if sometimes the kid doesn't play, they rather accept it easier than if they would pay $2,000 or $3,000 every 3 months.
That's a great point. You did come from Germany, and I'm curious what your experiences were coming from Europe to the US as an international student. How did you transition? I know I did it as an international student. I came over. What was that like for you as a student athlete coming over and just being immersed in an American college and American sports teams? What was that like for you?
To be honest, I really underestimated the level of the D1 college level, because I thought, I played for a high leveled academy in Germany. That's going to be easy for me in America, but it wasn't the case. The game was really athletic, really fast. The level was good, and especially of the top 11, 12 guys, which are usually all academy players from the US or very strong international players. So I was really surprised by the level. It took me a little bit to adapt, because the game is a bit different. It's less technical. It's more physical. And I was always a technical player. So I kind of needed a couple months to get used to it. But then after a couple months, I knew what it takes to be successful in the United States in the game. And I thought it was very important. It is very important that players do their research before they come over here. It's not a walk in the park. It's really difficult to perform in the D1 level. You have to be a good player.
What about adjusting to the NCAA rules? Because obviously all of a sudden you come over and you can only practice this length of time. You can only, play during this part of the season. Was that an adjustment as well?
For sure. I mean, that was a big adjustment. So for me, that was really new to not be able to touch the ball for like 3 months from January to March.
Yeah.
Just spending time in the weight room. I never really spent too much time in the weight room as a player, but that was really new for me. Also, the amount of games to play every 3 days. It was physically exhausting in the beginning, and it's really hard to be consistently strong on the pitch, to play every single game strong. But that is a big difference. And the preseason as well. The preseason was very hard here, especially in North Carolina, with a lot of running involved. In Germany, often the ball is a little bit more involved, and it's kind of different type of running than here in the US. But yeah, I mean, every country has their own methodologies, but I like both. I'm happy to be in the US, and I'm still glad that I made that choice.
Yeah. When you look at now transitioning into coaching, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced as a coach that maybe coaches coming up need to know about?
Yeah, so that as a challenge is really to give every child the appropriate playing time in the levels, and especially in the higher levels of youth development, because at the end of the day, often the presidents and the owners of the clubs, they still want to see results, but you still want to make sure that every kid gets the appropriate playing time. So I think to manage this right in the youth level is a very difficult situation as a coach, because you don't also want to upset the other players and not win the game. You don't want to upset the other parents, but you also don't want to upset the parents that don't get to, that the child won't play. So that scenario, I think, is really difficult. And also in kind of the semi-pro level or amateur level in the United States after college, I think it's really difficult to get a lot of players committed to show up every training and every games, because they have all regular jobs. So you really have to make sure you have kind of a friendship with the players. You make the trainings really exciting so that they really want to come.
That's a great point. Making practices fun and interesting to engage the youth that you're working with. I think you could say the same for adults as well. Even if they have to come, you can make practices interesting and fun as well.
Yeah, I mean, they should want to come from their own, so you don't really have to motivate them. And that's what I always try to do. And every team I coach, doesn't matter if it's 4 to 7 year olds or college players or semi-pro players, they really need to want to come to training, because they enjoy it. They enjoy the bond in the group. They enjoy the trainings. They enjoy interacting with you. And if that's the case, you don't really need to push too much.
Well, just a reminder, we're talking with Michael Holzer. He's a soccer coach across many different levels. So if you have questions for him, be sure to put them in your chat box and we'll get them to him. Looking then about, coaching youth, you've coached youth, you've coached at the college level, and you've coached, you've played in Germany, you've played in the US. What are some of the things or advice you have for coaches, just in general, looking at coaching rather than necessarily soccer? If I'm let's say I'm a student who wants to become a coach, whether it's soccer or something else, what advice would you give them?
I think the biggest advice I would give the coaches is that they can see that the player sees that you care about them. That's really important, that you, at the end of the day, the players see that you care about them, that you really want to make them better as a player, that they come to you with any issues they might have, not just be a soccer coach that stands there and provides a service. It needs to be more like a mentorship and a teacher relationship, and not to be afraid of asking questions and advice going forward. And I think if that's the case, you have much more success going forward. And I think that's the biggest advice I would give to all the coaches out there.
As a coach in the US, there's a lot of pressure from parents. Maybe we could debate that, but getting their kids into sports early and specializing early. So, I have my son Johnny, and I want him to be a college soccer player. And so when he's 4 years old, I'm going to get him in a soccer program, and I'm going to, keep him in that soccer program as long as I can. What are your thoughts on this idea of sports specialization and and putting children in a sport and only one sport throughout their childhood?
I think the kids should play multiple sports, especially if they're really young. It also helps them to develop some sort of coordination and balance, and that's really important to be kind of multi-talented. And then when they really find out what they enjoy the most, then they make that decision to what they want to specialize on. But yes, if in terms of when to start as a soccer player to play soccer, I think 4 is a good age. You can really learn the basics and you need to enjoy it. And the motivation always needs to come from the kid. The kid really needs to want to do it. It is wrong if it's a parent initiative and the parent really wants him to be a future soccer star. It's more important that the kid wants to go and wants to find out different sports. And yes, that's my opinion.
A lot of parents, though, may resist that idea because when they look over there, they see, Jane, whose parents are putting her in every program that's available. And I don't want my Johnny to fall behind Jane. So, coach, I really think Johnny needs more practice time. How do you educate the parent about this idea that maybe Jane will burn out or get injured when she's 15 and not want to play soccer at all because she's been playing in it for so long?
Yeah, I think again, if you take time as a coach to really educate the parents and try to have a meeting or even an individual chat about your opinion, and if you're upfront and honest about it, I think you're more likely to get results. I think communication is key in everything, but the parents need to know that they're doing something wrong. If you don't tell them and don't give them your opinion, then nothing is going to change. And at the end of the day, it's still their parents' decision what they do with their child. But it's your responsibility as a coach to give your feedback, to give your opinion. And I think it's all you can do as a coach.
It's a difficult balance, though, right? Because they're essentially paying your salary. And so if you say, hey, I don't think this is necessarily good for your child, well, then I'm going to go and train with Jane's coaches. And then you're suddenly without, the funding that you need to have a job. So I think it's difficult, right? It's a fine line to walk.
Yeah, definitely a fine line. I still always try to be very honest and upfront because in the long run, that will help you more. That will help you more clients. You might lose here and there let's say a crazy parent. You might lose here and there, but in the long term, you will get more players in your program if you're upfront and honest and don't put money first and you put the development of the player and honesty. That's the advice I can give to that issue.
Now, as a soccer coach, you've coached across a variety of levels, and you've seen a lot of coaching, right? You've observed a lot of coaches and worked with a lot of coaches. How do you as a coach stay balanced? Because any of us who are motivated to be successful can easily spend maybe too much time and effort in our job, in trying to be the best that we can be. And yet we also have families, we also have interests, and we have to find that balance. So how do you do that? How do you make sure that you don't just put all your time into coaching soccer?
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit less complicated because I'm really crazy about the game. I really love soccer. For me, soccer is not work. So my day is all around the game. But it's really difficult for other coaches to stay balanced, I guess. But for me, I have a very understanding wife. And for me, I'm really balanced. If I'm all day talking about soccer or coaching, that doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother my wife. I make sure that I spend a lot of time with her when I have. But yeah, for me, it's my life was always about the game, and I can never get enough.
A question came in from Steve. He says, what about position specialization? Is that something that you support, or do you believe that, especially at the youth level, children should be playing a variety of different positions?
I think when they're really young, between 4 to 12, it's really important to really try out different positions because they really can also understand the game better if they play one game on top, then maybe as a defender, then midfielder. That kind of develops a soccer IQ an understanding of the game. But once they're like in a serious age, around 11, 12, 13, they really probably should find out where they fit the best and specialize in what position they want to play, or ask the coach, where do you think my child should play? But I am always a big fan of playing multiple positions, because a lot of coaches like players that can play multiple positions, because that gives you also more chances as a player in your career. If you rather have if you're only a center back, or if you're a center back and wing back and center mid, that gives you more options, because specific clubs and colleges look for positions, and if they see you can play multiple, that's a big plus.
One of the things you talked about earlier was making practices fun and interesting, and wanting people to come to your practices. Can you give some examples of how you make your practices fun? What do you do so that kids or adults, I want to go to coach's session, because we work hard, but it's a lot of fun too.
I think very important is that you at all times you should be very positive. Okay, if you're very positive instead of really critical, that's already one of the main aspects. Very positive. Also, you have to be very engaged and very enthusiastic, and kind of in a crazy level, positive and engaged, because then they really love their commitment. They love when you comment. They love when you demonstrate. You really have to show that you are passionate about the game. And I think if you see one of the coaches out there, which is my favorite coach, which is Jürgen Klopp, you see how engaged he is, how much passion he has, and that's kind of one of my role models. And everywhere he had success. It doesn't matter if it was a small team in Germany or Liverpool or Dortmund. He was successful because every player said he was so motivational, so passionate, and so positive all the time. Yes, it is important to also criticize at the right moment, but then you can also switch it off right away and be again passionate and positive. So I think finding that right balance and be rather positive than negative is very important. Very important. I can't hear you right now. I'm not sure why. Now I can hear you again. Perfect.
My apologies. I was just going to say thank you. Thank you for joining me and sharing some of your insight and experience. And if somebody has a question for you, wants to get in touch, learn more, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so if they have questions for me, they can feel free to reach out to me over email anytime. Yes, that's my email, mmholzer1990@gmail.com. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll always get back to you quickly. And yeah, that's my statement.
Well, thank you once again for joining me. I really do appreciate your time and expertise.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully speak to you soon. And thank you to all that listened to the video.
Well, just a reminder before we go, just coming up tomorrow, this should be a fun one. Jason Hawkins, the general manager of OKC Energy FC, will be talking from the 30,000 foot perspective of what it's like to run a soccer club, a professional soccer club. So we'll talk about hirings, firings, marketing, and all those. So bring your questions for him. That should be a fun one. And then we round out the week with Kyle Stevenson, the head coach of track and field at Georgia State. So we'll talk to him about coaching different types of sports, different disciplines within track and field, and trying to manage that as well. So on behalf of myself, of course, and Michael Holzer, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.